YouTube has suspended Steven Crowder due to a community guideline strike. Crowder will not be able to upload or live stream for 1 week. The official reason that they gave him, they say, "Hi, Steven Crowder, our team has reviewed your content, and unfortunately, we think it violates our spam, deceptive practices, and scams policy. We've removed the following content from YouTube." And the video in question is huge. Nevada voter mysteries deepen, louder with Crowder. We also have this story from TubeFilter that not only was Crowder suspended, they have demonetized his channel again, and they say it will be indefinite. And they say it's because he violated multiple rules. And I got to be honest, I don't believe it. We recently had a story about Steven Crowder. They were accusing him of being racist for a series of jokes he was making. Look, I watched the comments made by Crowder and his associates. They're not jokes I would make, but there's also Family Guy jokes I wouldn't make that are extremely racist, overtly racist. So I'm sorry, man, there's got to be some kind of standard in our culture. If I can turn on YouTube TV and play Family Guy on every single channel, and they repeatedly disparage Asian people, for instance, and they do literally disparage, well, okay, I don't want to be over the top. They make jokes based on racial stereotypes. That's what comedy does. They mock these ideas. If Crowder did something that was offensive, I think you got to have unified standards. But here's the important part. YouTube said that wasn't why they took him down. They said it was about spam and deceptive practices, and that's the trick. What YouTube, in my opinion, is doing, they want to find a way to get rid of Crowder. They want to try to find a way to get rid of everybody who's anti-establishment. But they know that if they go after him on hate speech grounds, they'll spark culture war issues. So they're going after him on what the mainstream narrative is, and that's the voter fraud stuff, and that's the, January 6th, it's deceptive practices. If they came out and said, you can't say this joke, this is hate speech, we're going to take you down, I think a lot of people would start bringing up all of these other shows. So YouTube said, no, that's fine, that's not hate speech, but the left certainly went after him for it. Now, I want to read you a statement from Crowder as to what he said is happening. Then I'll show you the story from TubeFilter, but we got more. It's more than just Crowder, man. Recently, Joe Rogan made a statement. There's a video from Mark Dice, and it's generating some controversy because people are calling out Joe Rogan saying he lied about what happened. And based on the stories I've read, yeah, Joe wasn't completely honest about what was going on. Now, I'm going to throw some defense towards Joe's way on this one. But basically, back in the day, he said when he transferred over to Spotify that there was some kind of glitch or error that didn't transfer over certain podcasts. And then later said that, Spotify didn't want some of these episodes on Spotify. However, I've also heard that he said he never intended to fully port over every single episode. It's very confusing. I want to make sure I read the story because I got to be honest with you guys. Look, Steven Crowder does tremendous good in terms of fighting the culture war, defending free speech. While I certainly disagree with him on maybe some of his jokes, but that's fine. I think he's doing comedy, and that's my opinion. And I certainly disagree with him on policy issues. I think that's fine. I think the defense of freedom of speech and his right to do it is paramount. And same thing with Joe Rogan. So I want to make sure I'm very careful on these stories because these are two people that are doing tremendous good in fighting to defend freedom of speech and liberty and to have real conversations on the internet. But we got to highlight everything that's going on. Crowder posted on Instagram, "I've been warning about this for a long time, and now it's here. Big tech, and specifically YouTube, have painted a target on conservatives' backs for years, with yours truly being target number one. Today, YouTube just fired a huge shot across our bow. They are no longer enforcing community guidelines, but creating entirely new ones with the express purpose of removing any and all conservative voices of dissent. For the crime of investigative journalism, we are forbidden from uploading, posting, or live streaming for an entire week on the main channel. Don't worry, we've got something for them. In the meantime, you can watch everything live at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. Updates to follow very soon. And my friends, there is also another way you can tune into Steven Crowder, and that's Crowder Bits on YouTube. They may have suspended the one channel, but he also has his Clips channel, which is, again, Crowder Bits. I got 855,000 subscribers. So you'll probably end up, still seeing many of his videos. I believe Crowder is going to be posting there. I'm not entirely sure what his full plan is. He might be streaming there. But I will mention as well, YouTube has told me in the past that if they suspend you on one channel, you can't post identical content on another channel. So if you want to still make sure you're following Crowder for this next week, you got to go to Crowder Bits. But let me show you what YouTube is claiming Crowder did. TubeFilter reports YouTube has once again demonetized right-wing commentator Steven Crowder's channel. this time for multiple violations of community guidelines, including COVID-19 and election integrity policies. Quote, in order to monetize on YouTube, channels must comply with the YouTube Partner Program policies, which include our community guidelines, Google AdSense program policies, and advertiser-friendly guidelines, a YouTube spokesperson tells TubeFilter. Channels that repeatedly violate our policies are suspended from the partner program. YouTube says Crowder committed a range of violations across these policies, and the company removed 2 violative videos, a March 16th live stream where Crowder mocked black farmers, and his co-host, David Landau, joked about slavery, and an upload that crossed YouTube's policies against spreading false claims that widespread fraud, errors, or glitches swayed the 2020 U.S. presidential election. That, my friends, that is fake news. First of all, they say they removed a live stream where he mocked black farmers. The Verge reported on March 18th, inexplicably, YouTube says extremely racist Steven Crowder video isn't hate speech. While offensive, this video from the Steven Crowder channel does not violate this policy. Why? Could it be that the video that came out was taken out of context? That Crowder, when making these offensive jokes, was mocking racists? You see, this is the problem I have with the left. But obviously, it's a culture war. They'll do whatever they can for power. I could be wrong about this, and I'm not here to defend, everyone all the time. When Steven Crowder makes these jokes, and he has a series of clips where he's saying, offensive things. My understanding is that he was claiming it was the royal family. So he apparently made some comments, and he was. It's like this. If I was like, could you imagine what those racist people would be saying? And then you say things to mock them for being racist. I could be wrong. That's my general understanding. The point of all of this is they did not remove his video having anything to do with those jokes. TubeFilter says they do. And then here's how they get you. An upload that crossed YouTube's policy against spreading false claims that widespread fraud, errors, or glitches sway the 2020 election. I don't recall Crowder saying that either. You see how they play this dirty game? Look, they took down Crowder's video, and I think this one was the one where he went around and checked addresses for people who voted and found some of them were not correct. My understanding is that Crowder did get some of these images wrong. There was like an address change. And that's all it takes. One slip up, one trip up, one mistake, or one suspicious moment. And they'll say, see, you got it wrong. That's spam or deceptive policies. But the point is, I do not believe, I don't recall Crowder ever saying that widespread fraud or errors did any of these things, as they say. Let me explain to you how it works. You got to be very careful of this when you're in this industry. I did an event in the Philadelphia area. We had Daryl Davis, renowned jazz musician and a black man who met and befriended Klan members and convinced them to quit. That's the game. That's what Daryl Davis did. He's an amazing man, de-radicalizing white supremacists. He was a headline speaker. A bunch of activists called the theater and made ridiculous claims and threatened to burn the theater down or something to that effect. The media then gets involved and they write this garbage where they're like, activists are outraged because it's a far right event with, this, that, or otherwise. And that's all it takes. The media just publishes insane false accusations, and there is nothing you can do because the paper goes, well, that's what they said. That's the game. So here's what happens. YouTube takes down a video from Crowder claiming, it's deceptive or whatever, and then the media can keep pushing it. Eventually, you'll see articles where they're like, Steven Crowder, who was suspended from YouTube for saying these things. That's how the game works. You'll create a wave of articles. And then what happens next? After an event like this theater thing, someone will write it up saying they're accusing Poole of hosting extremists or whatever. Then the next time someone writes about me, they'll say Poole, who you may recall was involved in a controversy over booking a bunch of fringe far-right extremists for an event. It just becomes truth because they lie over and over and over again. This is why it's scary, because people like Crowder, he's conservative, he does comedy, and he did some investigative reporting and they don't like it. Yeah, well, that's not the position of YouTube. We're in a new era, okay? I understand this. It used to be 5 TV channels. Well, Crowder has the ability to make his own website. He has the ability to upload to wherever he wants, but YouTube is a great opportunity for most people. YouTube is now trying to use that power to effectively force the conversation in a certain direction. Or, an easier way to put it, Without saying, I certainly think YouTube does this because we see YouTube's rules. But an easier way to look at it is just that activists are attacking companies because they know they can go after advertisers, and YouTube knows conservatives don't have enough power, nor establishment or legacy media access, and they're going to side with the activists every single time. It's establishment bias for the far left. It's actually really, really creepy. And so we need voices like Crowder. And you know what the thing is? Even if you don't like Steven Crowder, you need a counterpoint. You need a counterbalance. Otherwise, you're just going to flip over. We cannot just have some monoculture where everyone just believes whatever it is they're told. You need dissenting voices to help improve everything around you, your culture, your laws, your society, your movies, your entertainment. This is what we risk losing. Censorship is going to get worse. They go on to say, the platform previously told 1-0 that Crowder's March 16th video did not violate its policies against hate speech. Okay, good. Thank you for including that, Tube Filter. But did violate policies against content that claims COVID death rate is less severe than that of the common cold or flu. I also don't believe that's the case, because I know Crowder to be a stickler for these stats for this reason. And everybody knows when you go to the CDC, they tell you straight up COVID is a lot worse than the flu. Why would Crowder pull up the CDC and then ignore what the CDC says? That to me makes no sense. But hey, look, I haven't seen every single thing he said. I just, don't believe it. Crowder announced his demonetization on Instagram. They say Crowder was originally removed from the partner program in June 2019 for repeated racist and homophobic harassment of former Vox journalist Carlos Maza. I love how they do this. Being a high-profile media personality, getting criticized is not racist harassment, not homophobic harassment. The issue with that instance, it was very similar. Carlos Maza, he was a personality for Vox. Now he does his own channel. He would call himself names. He would say, this is what I am, and be self-deprecating to make a point. Crowder used his own language against him. I got to say at a certain point, Steven, you know what they're going to do with these out of context clips. But I guess it doesn't matter if you know they're going to do it. You shouldn't just change the way you do humor and the points you're trying to make because you know they're manipulative. And I think Crowder's got his red line. He won't do it. Crowder wants to make a joke. He wants to use their language and mock them. And he wants to be offensive, or and I don't mean offensive like purposely, attacking people. I mean like offensive as in doing comedy that's edgy. He's entitled to do it. Family Guy does it every day. Dave Chappelle literally did it on Netflix. Joe Rogan does it. Ricky Gervais does it. But Steven Crowder is actually in the political space as a conservative. You see, Dave Chappelle, while he may make these jokes, he's not particularly conservative, although he kind of is on some issues. It's interesting. They're going to say YouTube reinstated him into the partner program and brought back monetization to his channel in August 2020, saying he had taken steps to address the behavior that led to his suspension and has demonstrated a track record of policy compliant behavior. Per YouTube, Crowder's suspension is immediate and indefinite. Now, this is interesting. His suspension. No. I think he's only suspended for the next week from a community guideline strike. My understanding is he got one. And that's how it works. You get one strike. Then for 1 week, you can't upload. Then after, I think, 3 months, that strike gets removed. But within that 3 months, if you get another strike, then you get like a month or 2 month or some ridiculously long suspension. So we'll see how this plays out. This is important because I can imagine it's only going to be getting worse, my friends. Steven Crowder is high profile, mainstream, massive channel, one of the highest profile conservative commentators and comedians. In fact, he may be the only high profile conservative comedian. Maybe that's unfair. Okay, there's a lot of conservative comedians, but he's certainly a big, I guess it's not a late night host anymore. It's a morning show. But they're coming after him. And I know for a fact the things he's talked about, I talk about similar things on my show. Once they get rid of Crowder, then they come for everyone else. It is the cliffs eroding. At first, it was just the far right. It was the alt-right. And I warned, it's only a matter of time. Then they started coming after more, staunch conservatives. Now it's Steven Crowder. Eventually, it'll be me. And then eventually, it's going to be the left. We've already seen progressives get taken down. It's a good time, a better time than ever to say, go to timcast.com, become a member. We are going to be rapidly expanding, producing tons of content. I'm looking at scripts for short films. I want to do shows. I want to do comedy specials. We have a lot of stuff we want to do. It'll take some time, but we're going to do it. Why? Because I don't think we're long for this world, my friends. I think it's only a matter of time before YouTube shuts everything down. So let's talk now about Joe Rogan. This is an important story. Joe Rogan called out over censorship. Quote, he lied. I'll say this right away. Joe Rogan moved to Spotify. A lot of people were upset by the move. It's harder to watch, they said. It's harder to listen to. You can't see it on your TV. Like, how am I supposed to do this? And, Joe acknowledges this. I think Joe is a good dude. And I think he's one of the most important figures in the culture war because he has the biggest podcast in the world and he defends free speech. He literally speaks truth to power. He stands up for a lot of people and he's willing to have these people on his show. Man, the dude is incredibly important. Joe Rogan moved to Spotify because he knew, in my opinion, what YouTube had to offer. I'm not saying, I know anything privy. I'm saying I see his move as something like a dude. You get a guaranteed contract, a fat stack, $100 million deal, and Spotify says, do your thing and we won't get in your way. And you look at YouTube and YouTube's like, we'll ban you. There's a point where Joe Rogan stopped doing live streams. I remember the first time I went on his show, it was live stream. And then it started as a live show, became a pre-recorded show. And I think Joe mentioned something about this, but I wonder if it had a lot to do with the fact that someone could say something live and you can't control it and YouTube will shut you down. That's something we deal with all the time on the IRL podcast because we're live. Someone could say something and we've had people say things and I'm like, what do we do? It's out there. It's live. Boom. They said it. Yeah. It's risky business. So Rogan takes the Spotify deal and I think it's partly because he realized, man, YouTube could nuke you at any time. Check this out. Mark Dice said in his March 29, 2021 YouTube video, Joe Rogan accidentally let it slip out that he lied to his audience and Spotify shareholders that Spotify wasn't censoring his show. You may recall that he signed a $100 million deal with them last year. And then when his podcast archive got transferred over to Spotify, some of the fans noticed that there were a few episodes, actually several dozen, that were mysteriously missing. And it just so happened to be episodes from certain controversial guests that have been banned from YouTube, Twitter, and other social media platforms. I got to stop right there. It's true, but there's a little bit more to the story. Some of the people removed, some questions, right? Here's the full list of every missing episode posted 7 months ago. 45 episodes. Alex Jones was taken down. Michaela Peterson was taken down, eventually returned. That's weird. You got Owen Benjamin. You've got Chris D'Elia, Sargon of Akkad, Gavin McInnes. So you look through this and you'll see a lot of these episodes, kind of a certain kind of person, Sargon, Jones, Milo, etc. However, Brian Callen, Jimmy Burke, and Brian Redband, that's like a regular Joe Rogan episode. I certainly think it wasn't just about these specific individuals, and some of them, like Chris D'Elia, are over controversial press. I don't understand why Sargon of Akkad was taken down. Maybe they just didn't like some of these episodes. However, my understanding is that these didn't get poured over due to a glitch. That's what was said initially. Well, let's read. Dice was highlighting comments Rogan made on his podcast in February while talking about the move to Spotify. Rogan said, there's a few episodes they didn't want on their platform that I was like, okay, I don't care. Rogan has said on his podcast that Spotify hasn't told him who he can or cannot have on his show and said they don't care what he talks about. They don't give a F, man. They haven't given me a hard time. Some Rogan listeners have expressed displeasure since he moved in 2020 from posting his podcast on YouTube, so as we talked about. I think it's probably true. We know that Spotify employees have been going after Joe and they're making demands. I don't think they work. It's a double-edged sword, my friends. My fear is that if it's true that they really just didn't want Joe bringing these episodes over, then I'm confused as to what the official narrative was from Joe and what he was saying. And I got to be honest, man, it's not a good thing. But if Joe is trying to do everything in his power to preserve his show and strengthen it, they just nuked Steven Crowder, man. If Crowder had the opportunity to bring his show to a platform with a contract guarantee that couldn't remove him, and it meant some of his older episodes would get removed, honestly, it'd probably be a good thing. Now, I get it. Probably better if Joe was just straightforward and said they don't want these episodes on. That's why Mark Dice brings up the shareholders thing, because the stock for Spotify skyrocketed once they acquired the licensing deal for the Joe Rogan podcast, the exclusive deal. Joe should have said outright. But I also understand, I get it, man. There's a difficulty here. Joe wanted to do everything in his power to maximize his ability to keep doing his show. And you guys got to understand it's a very, very important show for, freedom-loving individuals who want to have real conversations, who want to challenge the system. And Joe has had Alex Jones and Tim Dillon on his show. I believe that was on Spotify. That's very important. Dice said of Rogan, he lied to cover up for things that a company that you work with or work for did to him. Maybe that's fair. Joe should have been more honest with his audience. I think about the bigger picture. I'm not I'm not super concerned necessarily about whether or not a handful of episodes are ported over. I think it's bad. I really, really do. My biggest thing is like, okay, that's not good. Joe Rogan's podcast has to continue. These conversations need to have this platform. It's like one of the last bastions in terms of mainstream content that's being promoted and propped up by the establishment. The fear, however, I guess, that you can't shake is that because of this, Joe can come out and say they're not screwing with him. But we've seen the activist protests. We've seen them make demands. And what if Joe is just saying, oh, they're letting me do whatever I want. Trust me. Are they? I'd like to think so. I do. And so long as the show continues and these conversations still happen, it's better than nothing. So I can only say this. Maybe there are some conversations you won't see ever again with Joe Rogan. Maybe there are certain ideas that have become too taboo and they won't bring these episodes over. I highlighted the list because like Chris D'Elia was not being banned because of anything he said. It's because of who he is and the controversy around him. I'm not a fan of any of this censorship. All of these episodes still exist on a bunch of archived platforms, and it is what it is. For the time being, whatever is going on with Joe Rogan's podcast, it is still a massive, massive net positive for those who believe in freedom. We should absolutely be critical of any deception, lies, or censorship. But Joe Rogan's show is still very important. And I got to say, man, nobody's perfect. And maybe I'm giving a bit too much room, or I'm being a bit too defensive of Joe, but I know the guy. And I genuinely think he is trying to do the right thing. And I genuinely do not believe he is doing it just to benefit himself. The guy is rich, okay? Like, come on. He's been rich for a really, really long time. This deal with Spotify secures a position for him. Maybe it might pull back some things he's allowed to say, but YouTube won't be able to ban him or take him down. Now, some have argued YouTube wouldn't do that anyway because he was too big, perhaps. I think Steven Crowder needs some strong deal like this as well to guarantee no matter what happens, he can't be taken down. Of course, Crowder has Mug Club, his own private platform. Perfect. I also have timcast.com. New website will be rolling out soon. New features. It's going to be epic. Probably going to be some bumps along the way, but we are going to do everything in our power to make something truly incredible. Original shows, original movies, original short films, all that crazy stuff. And it's going to be weird, low budget, but budget enough. Maybe you guys have seen my music video, Will of the People. I thought it was amazing and really, really well done. I'm a fan of my music, so I wrote the song. I think it was great, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed it. And if you thought the quality was good, I've been hearing great things from people on the left, people on the right. People on the left who hate me are like, man, it's actually a pretty good video. Then I think we're going to be able to hit this one out of the park, and we're going to make stuff that's going to be epic. We have to do our own things, protect ourselves on our own platforms, because it's only a matter of time. So Crowder is still up at Crowder Bits. And you can go to louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub to watch his content. And that's a way you can support him because look, again, you might not like him. You might not like his jokes, but you still need to recognize you need the debate. As for Rogan, look, man, I'm never going to be mad at this guy because he's been having so many important conversations. And if the only thing ever is that we got to have that conversation with Jack Dorsey and Vijaya Gadde, which still to this day, I keep getting hit up about interviews, like they want to talk to me about it, the importance of censorship in this conversation. Joe Rogan did not have to do that and open himself up to these kinds of controversies. I think he's doing legit stuff. Joe Rogan had on Abigail Shrier, who talks about transgender issues. This is some bold and brave stuff, okay? So my respect to Joe. I know him. I consider him a friend. He's a nice guy. Maybe I'm just offensive for that reason, but I think his show is very important. If it's true that, these episodes are getting removed, it's a bad thing. It is. But I still think we need to be like, encourage Joe to do good, have these conversations, and keep doing what he's doing. Recognize the bad, but take what we can get, man. As for Crowder, he needs to have something like that as well, some kind of deal that protects him. So anyway, I'm beating dead horse. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.